When I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. Hey everybody, Jaymz Allen here. Welcome back to the channel. So a couple days ago, I did a review on this. This is the Jaymz IR Box. Not only did that video kind of tank because I hate doing videos on pedals because they just don't hit very good with people. I think they really want to see the guitar reviews. But I was curious about this pedal because I've been using the Tone X1 and pedals like that. And I saw this on Amazon, didn't really read up about it, probably should have. Bought it thinking it was probably similar to a Tone X, but it's really not. It's very limited to what it can do. And I was kind of lambasted by a couple people in the comments. You know, fair enough, but whatever. You know, I don't always know what I'm talking about. I mean, that's kind of the point of the channel, is that, you know, I buy stuff just to try it out, to review it, to give you an idea of, you know, if you were to buy something, what your experience might be like. You know, I don't know a ton about these IR boxes. I know amp sims and cabinet sims and things like that in pedals, and I know what, you know, the IRs are, and you can download a bunch of stuff from the internet. So I guess I assumed that this pedal would include an amp sim, because why have a cab sim without an amp sim? So it kind of didn't make sense to me. And plugging it into the audio interface, I thought it was something I would be able to use you know, from the guitar into the audio interface to make it sound like an amp, so that when I did reviews on guitars, I could just plug into this thing and it would kind of sound like an amp without having to mic everything up. That's not the case. This did not sound good at all, and that's because operator error. I was using it incorrectly. This thing is really meant to be used with a speaker because it's emulating a cabinet. So going into the audio interface where there's no, you know, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, there's a lot of circuitry going on through the computer and a lot of things going on before it comes out of the speakers. And so it really didn't provide an accurate representation of the sound of this. And then after playing around with it a little bit, a lot of that sort of what I called the telephone sound was because I had the high cut too high. So it was cutting a lot of the high signal and kind of making it sound that quacky sound. So I'm going to show you what I did to kind of make this work. Basically, I'm going from an amp modeling pedal, which is this here, the AC Tone by Joyo. Now, somebody in the comments also pointed out that this pedal is also a cabinet emulator because it is modeling the AC30 by Vox. But I find that it's more of a pedal that relies on an amp. So if you're going into an amp, a physical amp with this pedal, it sounds really good. If you're going into an audio interface, say to record, it sounds a little thin because there's no physical amp. So if you load up an IR or an amp sim or a cabinet sim in your DAW, then this sounds a lot better. So it's not purely an amp sim, it's more of a pedal to pair with an amp, if that makes sense. So really, this turned out to be the perfect companion to this when you're going into an actual speaker. So I paired this with this, found a cab sim that sounded the best, that I liked the best, and then ran it through a HeadRush FRFR speaker. and the tones I get are pretty nice. So I'm going to show you that setup. I'm going to play some sounds, and then I'm going to play some sounds through my Harmony tube amp so that you can kind of compare the two. I'm not saying that this is better than the Harmony tube amp, so don't get all worked up about that. I'm just saying that it sounds pretty good. The thing about going into the FRFR with this stuff and then comparing it to the Harmony, at least that I notice, is that the digital is super clean. I mean, it's almost, I mean, not clean, like no distortion. No, I mean, it sounds like, you know, what it's supposed to sound like, a distorted guitar, overdriven guitar. It's just the signal is so like pure. It's almost too clean. It almost sounds artificial, which I never could ever tell the difference between a tube amp and, you know, solid state or modeling. But now I'm starting to kind of change my mind because of this type of setup. So, and maybe it's just because I've been using that amp a little bit during practice, and then playing it side by side with this stuff. You can really tell the tube. You know, everybody always says warmth, it's so much warmer, blah blah blah. But it's really true that the tube amp has a certain tone to it that's really hard for digital to replicate, and I think it's because digital is such a clean signal, whereas tubes and all that stuff, all that analog circuitry, just kind of has a little more character to it, I think. And that's, you know, a lot of this is really personal preference. So I'm not going to go into which one's better or which one's, you know, whatever. But this is a really good setup. And another reason is because, you know, I got this amp, I took it to practice. It weighs 50 pounds. It's huge. This little HeadRush speaker is, I think it's an 8-inch speaker in the, but this, you know, the speaker is only so big. Really lightweight. These are small, so it's going to be a little bit easier rig to carry around. And I know I'll take a lot of criticism for talking about how heavy tube amps are and stuff like that, but I don't really care. This is just a little more compact setup. Going to be a little easier to travel with. And so let's get started. Let's check this out. Okay, I got everything all set up. So when I bought this pedal, I assumed that it had an amp sim in it, because most amp sims have IR loaders in them. And so it seemed kind of odd to me to have just an IR cabinet emulator in a pedal that didn't have an amp sim, because it's the use cases for that seem pretty narrow to me. I mean, it works well with this AC Tone pedal because that's an amp sim. So this IR loader gives you the ability to mimic certain cabinets using that amp sim. But where I find this pedal to be very limited is the fact that most amp sims that you buy have cabinet emulation built into them. I mean, you know, the Tone X1 that I kind of erroneously compared this pedal to has cab sim built into it. I didn't understand why the pedal even existed. It didn't make sense to me. But now it kind of does. I mean, it's still, I think it's a very limited use case, because, like I said, most pedals have cab sim built into them. And I don't think this particular pedal does it, you know, better than those pedals. So the fact that it's a standalone pedal that only does cab sim, I mean, that right there immediately makes it a very limited pedal. So all that said, let's show you that it actually sounds pretty good. It's not the worst pedal in the world, like my other video said. So let's check it out. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of tone through the harmony first. It's a tube amp. I did a review on that a little while ago. And so just to get kind of a baseline of sound, using Gibson SG. Okay, so there you go. That gives you an idea of how that amp sounds. And then we'll switch over to this other setup so you can hear that. Okay, so this is, as you can see, this is the HeadRush. I forget what model it is. I borrowed it from a friend. It's a FRFR speaker. I think it's 1,000 watt. I'll put specific details in the description. So I'm running from the Gibson SG into that AC Tone pedal, and then into this IR box, and I've got preset 17 chosen. I'll have to look through the app to see what tone, what amp or cabinet rather that's emulating, so I'll put that in the description as well. So that's the pedal. So let's put it on bypass so you can kind of hear the difference. But see how I said before how the AC Tone sounds a little thin? Well, this cabinet emulator really, I guess, fattens it up, I guess you could say. So listen, there's the bypass. See how it really... And you can go through all the presets. I mean, there's... Okay, so anyway, that's the pedal the way it was intended to be used, I think. My first review just, didn't do it justice because I didn't know what it was. That's my fault, but it was an impulse, no pun intended, it was an impulse buy. I saw it on Amazon. I thought, oh, hey, that's interesting. I'll check that out. And some people just kind of take offense when you don't know exactly what you're doing. But it's, as I pointed out to somebody in one of the other comments, we're not sending people to space here. We're just talking about guitars, okay? And everything that I do and everything that I review is just my opinion. I don't claim to be a professional. I don't claim to be the last word in guitar gear. Anybody that watches the channel should know that. So, I think there's a little bit of value in seeing somebody fumble through something to try to figure out what it is and how to use it. So that's kind of my, my excuse or my defense in my defense. But anyway, it's not a terrible pedal. You're definitely not gonna buy it and just plug your guitar into it like I thought you might be able to. Anyway, I just wanted to set the record straight, kind of clear the air on that pedal. I don't want to spread any misinformation or, talk about something that I don't know what I'm talking about. But at least now, you know, anybody that's interested in this pedal is going to know what I now know, which is you can't just plug it into your guitar and use it. It's you know, it has a specific purpose, and that's to provide cab simulation, which, I don't know, your results may vary. I mean, you can, you know, it depends on the pedal you've got in front of it, and you can probably achieve a lot of those tones with just EQ, but I think it sounds pretty good, so I decided I'm going to keep it. I was going to return it, but I thought, you know what, that's kind of a hassle. It's got its place. I can use it with this setup, so I can use that when the band rehearses. I think it sounds okay. What I can't really do with it, which is what I wanted it for, was to be able to run into my audio interface and use it, you know, to make the guitar sound more like it's, you know, it's coming through an amplifier when I record for the purpose of guitar demonstrations. That didn't sound good at all. Anyway, that's my review. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stanley says hi. I know everybody has missed him. He's going to be at the live stream for the giveaway, helping me draw winners for that guitar, or the guitar and the pedals. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time. IR loader gives you the ability to mimic certain cabinets, cabinet emulation built into them. You know, the Tone X1 that I kind of erroneously compared this pedal to. Excuse me, son, I can't see the screen. Pardon me, sir. And then we'll switch over to this other setup so you can hear that.